All right, so we talked a lot about what the cloud is and what it means as far as what is the difference between the cloud and traditional server system where we would run our application. What I want to talk about now is how the idea of the cloud has changed the software itself. There's three different levels of types of cloud computing software. There's infrastructure as a service, platform as a service, and software as a service. Infrastructure as a service is very much what you would think of most likely in a traditional server environment. It's this idea that we're going to provide the infrastructure as a service, at least from the perspective of the software engineer. There would usually be a systems team and an operations team and different teams that are responsible for managing those servers and the network and the data center as a whole. And from the software developer's perspective in the traditional data center, if I want to launch a new software service, I would request some servers from my systems group who would probably create them based upon, some kind of clone image of a server. And they would provide that to me, and it would be basically an empty server with an operating system most likely, and maybe a few security things, patches, things that were deemed important for the company. It's not going to be likely to have everything I need installed. So I'm going to go in there and I'm going to set it all up the way I want, or maybe someone in operations is going to do that, and then we can run our service on top of it. Infrastructure as a service is pretty much the same idea. I go to my cloud service provider like AWS, the Amazon, or like DigitalOcean or Google, and I say, I need a empty virtual machine. I want it to be running Cent or Ubuntu or maybe Windows. And they're going to return to me a ready-to-go virtual machine. It creates it in seconds. And it's not going to have my application. It's not going to have the firewall configured the way I want. It's not going to have any of that done, but it's going to be ready to be configured. I can then log into this and set it up. That is infrastructure as a service. And it's very much in line with what we used to do in the traditional server environment with software. Now, where things have changed is in the cloud environment, we also have the idea of platform as a service. What this is the idea that, well, instead of just giving you an empty operating system shell, essentially, that you have to build each time, we're instead going to give you a ready-to-go environment that is pre-configured, and all you have to do is give it your software, your binary, your application, what you need to run. That will then use all of the layers of abstraction that have been provided below it to enable that to run. You won't have to worry about updates to the operating system. You won't have to worry about updates to maybe the container that runs your software. So for example, if it's a Java software and it's running on, say, like Tomcat or Glassfish, that container will be managed and updated separately from your application. So those updates can happen behind the scenes and you don't even know that they happen. So that's a real advantage. When you go back down to infrastructure as a service, oftentimes you still need to manage those pieces. Regardless of who installed that container, whether it be Tomcat or whatever, somebody has to make sure that it gets its security patches. Your operating system has to be maintained. That can still be abstracted away from the developer. Platform as a service, it is being managed completely away from the perspective of the developer. The developer just knows, I get this place that I can put my application and my application runs. The last abstraction here is software as a service. And this actually comes in two different varieties. The first is where I have a software that actually virtualizes within the software. So I can provide services to different clients within my software. One example of this is, it's a very basic one. If you've ever used WordPress as a platform to build a website, it is a software as a service tool in some respects. You can set WordPress up to host multiple websites for multiple clients, and that can all be managed with some external tools through a graphical user interface where you create new clients. If I want to have a company that creates, WordPress environments for you to create a website, you can come to me and I can quickly set up your virtual environment within my own software, and you get that environment within the software. Another good example of this is some portal software do this where within their own database, they're completely multi-tenant. You can have multiple websites and portals built inside one software on one server stack. It might have redundancy and there might be multiple application servers. Just think about it as one system. And that one system could provide tens or hundreds of clients' websites. Those clients get an individual experience when they go to their administrative panel. They don't see any of the information from the other clients. They only see their own information. Everything within their software's database is built in such a way that they can only query their own information out of the database. We're no longer virtualizing just within the server system, but now we're virtualizing within the software itself. The other way that we can think about software as a service is external software that we get to use in our software. For example, if I want to have a map on my software, but I don't want to have to actually create the map myself, or I want to have a street view in my software where you can look down the road of a particular location, but I don't want to have to go take those photos myself, I can use, Google's map service as a software as a service. I might have to pay Google a fee for every time I use it. That's between me and Google. And if I decide that that is a financially prudent thing to do, then I hook up to Google's service and I make a request. Can I have the maps for this location? And Google provides them to me, and then I can embed them in my own software. Software as a service is this idea that we can virtualize at the software level, not just below it. We can do it in one of two ways. We can either do it where a piece of software is basically virtualizing for different tenants within that software, or we're actually talking to other softwares to bring in bits and pieces of what we need to create the whole.